We begin tonight with the fallout from the Democrats' first impeachment probe hearing with a Trump witness.
5-4.
House Democrats calling their first official witness in this impeachment probe of potential obstruction of justice by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, marking today as a kind of inflection point in the battle over accountability for what Democrats say are Trump's crimes in office. There were fireworks as witness number one, Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, seized on this star turn today to battle, filibuster, and at times openly taunt House Democrats at this hearing. They say Lewandowski's evasions and brazen tactics make him look disrespectful, even guilty. But remember, this is also an adversarial process, and at times, Lewandowski was, make no mistake, effective at delaying the process and even ruffling his questioners.
Is it correct that as reported in the Mueller report on June 19, 2017, you met alone in the Oval Office with the president?
Is there a book and page number you can reference me to, please? I don't have a copy of the report in front of me.
Volume 2, page 90.
Could you read the exact language of the report, sir? I don't have it available to me.
I don't think I need to do that, and I have limited time.
And I'd like you to refresh my memory by providing a copy of the report so I can follow along.
You don't have a copy with you?
I don't have a copy of the report, Congressman.
Chairman, I request that the clock be stopped while this charade is sorted out.
It was clear right there from that opening gavel that Lewandowski's strategy was to stonewall, to dodge, to even play the kind of games that frankly would appeal more to Donald Trump and his allies than win over any neutral observers.
How many times has the president asked you to meet him in the White House?
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions.
How many times did you meet with the president alone in the White House in 2017?
I don't know the answer to that.
How many times did he direct you to deliver a message to a member of his cabinet?
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president.
Here are the facts. Lewandowski never worked for the sitting president in office. He was never a government official. He was subpoenaed and put under oath to answer questions, some of which he answered already in the Mueller report. So right there, this request from the government to hide information or duck questions is just that. There's no legal component to it. It is the equivalent of saying, the people under investigation don't want me to tell you the truth about them. It's not a legally valid answer, which is why it didn't work, remember, when Lewandowski tried anything like that with Bob Mueller, who made Lewandowski admit in an incriminating interview that Trump asked Lewandowski to try to get the Attorney General to curb, yes, the Mueller probe, to limit its jurisdiction. Mueller categorized all of that as part of the efforts to curtail the Mueller investigation, the special counsel's investigation. So right here, you take a step back from Lewandowski's bluster and you see the outlines of the hiding. Hide the stories in public. Delay as long as possible. In Lewandowski's case, to be fair, ultimately tell Mueller the truth. Of course, that's partly to avoid having to go to jail, but then come back and hide it again when asked about it under oath today.
The White House is directed not disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. The White House is directed not disclose the substance of any discussions. The White House is directed not disclose. The White House is directed not disclose the substance of any discussions with. I will not disclose any conversations I've had with the president. I am respecting the executive branch privilege of confidentiality.
If you find the highlights repetitive, just imagine being in that hearing room or covering it all day today, as our team has been doing, tracking it. But in all seriousness, the privilege that might be sort of in the back of your mind there, wait, well, yeah, I've heard all about White House privilege. It does not apply to people who don't work in the White House, nor, by the way, to hiding potential crimes. But the guardians of that privilege were flanking Lewandowski today. You can see here as he leans back and gets that advice, Donald Trump's White House lawyers, providing government-paid legal services to this very important red-tide citizen. Now, at times, some members of Congress did narrow things, I want to show you, to the point that Lewandowski was forced to acknowledge certain facts. Here's a brief exchange with Congressman Hank Johnson.
I believe he asked me to deliver a message for Jeff to consider delivering himself.
He wanted you to deliver to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, correct?
I believe that's an accurate representation.
And he wanted you to deliver it to Jeff so that Jeff could say it to the people, right?
I believe so.
That was a rare admission today. Lewandowski's wrangling and evading in a hearing that continues was so thick, there are even some independent experts suggesting today he may have failed to do the bare minimum of cooperating with the congressional probe, which means Congress could technically hold him in contempt for that. That's what one congressman was asking for, and today Chairman Nadler reportedly is still considering all the options. So you take this together, and here's what we have. The Democrats held an obstruction of justice hearing to get facts about potential obstruction, and the key Trump witness looked more like he was covering up the facts than providing them. That's bad by any measure. Democrats say that itself looks like an element of the crime of obstruction. Trump's allies, though, they stress Lewandowski was never charged with anything during this long probe, let alone convicted, and that he did cooperate with Mueller. Take it all together, and even amidst the chaos of some of what Lewandowski did and was able to uncork, we showed you just some of the madness in these excerpts, a lot of this doesn't look that good for Donald Trump on the substance. But I want to be clear, because we always try to give you the full picture here. Lewandowski also did prove a wily and effective hostile witness at times. He just seized on this first hearing with a Trump witness by these Democrats in the House, and also, of course, the first major hearing since Bob Mueller himself testified, and Lewandowski used it to face down House investigators, to call into question the Democrats' approach thus far, and perhaps most ominously for those rooting for progress in the road to impeachment, Lewandowski called into question their results. For more analysis, I want to bring in two of our ace legal eagles, Maya Wiley, former counsel to the mayor of New York, former civil prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and John Flannery, former federal prosecutor. Good evening to you both. A lot to get into, and I have a few more excerpts I want to play for viewers. John, I put that question to you. Obviously, we see the substance and the problems and what Lewandowski did, and I've covered that. But what do you say to this point that he was wily and effective as a hostile witness?
I don't think he was wily and effective, and I thought he wore down toward the end, and that several of the members got elements of the crime of conspiracy. And what people forget is that you don't have to succeed in a conspiracy. And we have Trump asking him basically to kill the investigation by converting Sessions to their side. And he's told this, but he doesn't stop there. He does overt acts. He writes down what the president wants Sessions to hear. He makes an appointment with Sessions. Sessions doesn't show up. We don't know if there's any side conversation. He puts the document in a safe, and then he arranges for someone else to give it to Sessions. And then he has another meeting with Trump. So there are all these overt acts, and in a conspiracy, if you don't withdraw, you're exposed. So, and it only takes two to tango in a conspiracy. So you have Trump and you have this guy, and he just didn't carry the day. And I know that people watching it are uncomfortable because they like a smooth operation. And I'm not being facetious. Those of us who do trial work know that when you do a deposition, it's a food fight sometimes. And the thing that you have in a deposition is you can call a judge and have something happen. That said, I think that we got stuff from Nadler, who was stronger, and several congressmen who pinned the elements of the conspiracy and identified the overt acts, particularly Congressman Cecilia. I thought if you just took his 5 minutes, you had a summary of the case against our boy, Corey. And I don't know how he gets out of it. He should have taken the Fifth Amendment, and he's trapped. And if I was running against him, boy, this stuff will be out there all the time.
Maya, take a look at this key exchange.
Didn't you think it was a little strange that the president would sit down with you one-on-one and ask you to do something that you knew was against the law?
I didn't think the president asked me to do anything illegal.
You didn't think it would have been illegal for you to ask Mr. Sessions to drop the investigation and to just go on to future presidents and omit everything with this president and go ollie in free? We're going to start with the next one about colluding with Russia. You didn't think that was illegal to obstruct justice?
Congressman, the president asked me to do anything illegal.
Well, Lewandowski's ride or die. So that's, I think, what we got today.
That's clear, yeah.
That's clear. And I actually agree with what you said earlier, which is Lewandowski, Wiley maybe not, but what he did effectively was essentially stick to his position, which is I was not told to do anything illegal. Now, what John's absolutely right about is tons of evidence that yes, frankly, Robert Mueller found obstructive act, that it was connected to the grand jury investigation, and that there was substantial evidence of intent to obstruct. That's what the section of the Mueller report says regarding what Corey Lewandowski agreed to do for Donald Trump. think the problem here is Democrats were not able to get out a coherent story for those of us who are not lawyers.
Well, and that's the point,
issue.
because if this is about an impeachment probe, which they say it is, then the American public is looking at a pre-trial story, which would set up, are you ever going to go out and do articles of impeachment, do the rest? Whether or not you are, you need to lay that foundation. And at times it felt like Lewandowski, in style more than substance, was hostile, punched some holes, and then you got out on these diversions. Here's another moment to take a look at, which revolved around the safe and was, on the one hand, suspicious, but I don't think goes to the larger substantive question of whether Donald Trump is going to be proved to have committed crimes in office. That's what they're hunting. Take a look.
Have you ever put any words that the president asked you to write down before in a safe? Or was this the first time you'd done that?
I believe it's my standard operating procedure when taking notes, Congressman.
So every note that you take of the president, you put in a safe? How big is that safe?
It's a big safe, Congressman. There's a lot of guns in there.
Is this the first time you ever put a message that the president asked you to deliver to someone else in the safe?
Not to the best of my recollection.
Yeah, that was an important moment, I think, in the sense that it demonstrated that Corey Lewandowski, despite saying he doesn't believe the president asked him to do anything wrong, that there was something very sensitive there to him. And, you know, Karen Bass, Representative Bass, also got to this point, I thought, very effectively in her questioning about the fact that Corey Lewandowski did not want to go to the Department of Justice to meet with Jeff Sessions because he didn't want his name in the visitor's log. So if you're not doing something that you believe to be a little fishy, then why are you doing those two things?
Yeah, and this is something, John, that has come up before and that is important in the process for people to understand. I mean, we did a whole report here where Corey Lewandowski came on this show because we will interview people who are germane to the facts. He lied to us about the requests regarding interference. And then later, when it was in the Mueller report, we did a follow-up so viewers could see, hey, he lied. I also called him. He declined to come back on the show and discuss it because I extended that invite. So as Maya says, there are ways that Mr. Lewandowski has shown a great deal of knowledge about the things that are important, that go in the safe, that are lied about on TV, but then are told the truth to Mueller to not commit a crime, but then are hidden in the hearing today. At what point, though, does that create enough fog that the Democrats are struggling to break out of it with a clear message to America? In other words, what was the takeaway for Americans about the president's conduct today, in your view?
Well, what I found is that when we have a hearing like this, which is fairly controversial, and particularly my experience with the earlier impeachment hearing of President Clinton, there's like 2 days before you know the reaction. And my bet is the reaction will be that the synthesis of what they observed was Democrats asked questions and were interfered, and Republicans talked about everything else. So the synthesis will be, this guy's a bad guy. I think that's a likely outcome. And so there will be movement along those lines. The other thing that I think we should keep in mind, which is about the criminal law, is that if you, Corey, participate in a conspiracy, and you have reason to believe there are others in the conspiracy, you're implicated in the whole conspiracy. So there's kind of electricity between Corey and Trump and everybody else who's doing this.
Well, that's important what you're saying, which, John, I want you to analyze this other moment, the what are you hiding moment, because what they didn't do was unleash someone to say, I worked on the campaign, I'll tell you the whole story. Did we show up at dumb meetings? Sure, but Bob Mueller didn't charge us for that. Were we sloppy? Sure, but that's not a crime. Let me tell you the story because we are confident in what we did in our innocence. Instead, you have the evasions. And so that's the flip side. While I gave him some points, by which I mean what I think was effective from an adversarial legal context, one of the points that I thought was a shortcoming was the constant hiding, obviously. Take a look.
All right.
I think the American people want to know and are frustrated today, what, in fact, are you hiding? The president is named as individual one in a criminal case by his former personal attorney. You're asking us to believe that you never discussed with the president this fact in all of your thousands of hours of conversations.
Again, Congressman, to the best of my knowledge, I don't recall ever having a conversation with candidate Trump about any interaction with Russia.
Well, the best of his knowledge, when he was testifying at the beginning with Nadler, He didn't even remember if he met with the president twice and had to be shown the page and paragraph in order to agree to that. We all see that and we all say he knows he was with the president. And the other aspect is this is consciousness of guilt. What is going on? He tells us he makes no notes, and then he makes this note that he's supposed to, speech really, that he's going to give to Sessions. That's a contradiction. He puts it in a safe. Why? Because he doesn't want it to fall in anybody else's hands. But he takes it out and he gives it to someone else to finish his mission. And he doesn't recant. He doesn't withdraw from the conspiracy. In fact, you could argue that today in the House, he continued to be a co-conspirator.
Well, on that point, given your history advising these kind of committees, take a look at this big windup from Nadler. Take a look.
Okay, good.
Mr. Lewandowski, when you refuse to answer these questions, you are obstructing the work of our committee, but you are also proving our point for the American people to see. The president is intent on obstructing our legitimate oversight. You are aiding him in that obstruction, and I will remind you that Article 3 of the impeachment against President Nixon was based on obstruction of Congress. You are instructed to answer the question.
Lightning round in a sentence or two from both of you, your thoughts on that or in summation. John.
Nailed it. And that's exactly what's going on here. And he did it before the nation or however many people watched it. I think in the next 2 days, we'll see how he pays for it.
Maya.
I agree, and I would add that what's happening right now with Barry Burke pointing out that Lewandowski was having conversations about asserting the Fifth Amendment are things that I wonder if the American people are really hearing and if they're going to do a good job of getting at what is really going on here, as John said.
Well, we're going to keep reporting on it, including making sense of some of those moments today. John and Maya, thanks to both of you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.